dude, if we forget somebody's ice water or beer, or we slightly overcook their chicken, it's like we went at their house and slapped their baby in the face. They're going to write horrible things about us.
Hey, it's Nate DiSarro, and welcome to Titans of Industry, the podcast where I talk to industry leaders and innovators who are at the top of their game and leading the pack in their fields, uncovering some of the best stories in today's business landscape. In this episode, I talk with Donnie Ferneau, a nationally recognized award-winning chef who has reinvented the modern diner experience. Donnie talks about how other chefs have influenced his philosophies, how he eventually learned to check his ego at the door, and how he wound up cooking for celebrities like Bill Clinton and Eva Longoria. And now let's get to the episode. But before we do, it's important to know that whether you're a small business owner or the face of a multi-billion-dollar industry, your organization has a great story to tell, and Content Titan wants to help you tell it. We are a digital content creation powerhouse built for the 21st century, providing all-in creative, strategic, production, post-production, and distribution services for a 360-degree, 24/7 world. In our world, Titans are passionate, creative doers. They have the experience to take your project from start to finish, minimizing your involvement so you can focus on what matters most, running your business. So if you're ready to take your content strategy and production to the next level, our Titans are ready to help. Now here's my conversation with Donnie Ferneau. Well, Chef Ferneau, thanks so much for taking the time. This is going to be a great conversation, I can already tell. So I want to jump right in and just talk to me about how did you decide being a chef was what you wanted to do?
So that is a great question, Nate, and it's absolutely great to see you too today. That question is one of those. It's the real answer is not as glamorous as you'd think.
It seldom is,
right? I wanted to go into marketing at first. I wanted to do business, but I'm 44 years old right now, and so you got to think of the time now. Right now, we're using cell phones. We've got computers everywhere, and I wanted to go into business. I wanted to do marketing. I wanted to do all that, but going to business school, it was difficult. You know, I was paying for my own college and all that. But one thing I excelled in, I could cook in any restaurant. It was just I picked it up, had a knack for it. I don't know if it's in my bloodline, but when I was cooking in restaurants and making money to go to school, I could half-ass it, and I was just getting, different departments. I was working in different parts of the kitchen. It just came natural, but I was actually able to follow the lead of any chef that kind of taught me. And it's something weird. I wish I was good with like voices that way or acting, but if somebody shows me how to cook something and I watch you long enough, I will pick it up and I will emulate what you're showing me. And so as a young chef or a young cook or just a youngster in the kitchen, I guess the word chef is used very loosely these days, but I just picked it up. It was very natural. And then, my lifestyle, I wanted to go see concerts, wanted to travel, wanted to experience life, didn't have any money. And so chefing was one way I was able to do it. And I was just very blessed to get to work with a lot of really badass chefs in the industry that taught me a lot of what they had. And then by the time I kind of put all the things together and threw them in a hat and created what my identity was as a chef, I had a lot of different skills that came about. But I think I became a chef just because the opportunity was there. I didn't know I wanted to be one until I was actually a chef.
Very
so, I guess
I
it
love
is.
That.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So many people, they find out like, I didn't know this is what I wanted to do, but I'm pretty good at it. And then all of a sudden these opportunities start opening up and there they go. So, talk to me a little bit about where you've been. Where have you kind of lived and experienced, and who have you had as mentors?
So, funny story, we look at our college lives and we look at, you're a young man, you're going through life. And even when I was younger, man, I was picked on all the time. I had brothers that were great in sports and whatnot. But cooking kind of came second nature again, reiterating that. But when I was cooking and when I was doing, women were a big thing. I wanted to go on dates. I wanted to meet people. And so what really drove me was going on dates to be able to cook for people because I didn't have any money. I wanted to make something creative and I was able to do it. And so, but that passion, I was able to get my hands on a kitchen position that was, his name was Chef Philippe Forcioli. and he was the executive chef on the Orient Express train in Europe back in the 80s.
Wow.
And so he passed away the day before Paul Prudhomme did, of brain cancer, but it was about 4 years ago. But he really kind of forged my cooking abilities, and his passion for life, his passion for food, it kind of lit a fire in me. And I was able to go through Rockford. I went through Chicago, and in Iowa City when I was there at University of Iowa, the restaurants there back in the late 90s, it was very progressive. And I'm not saying Arkansas or the South is backwards by any means, but we were doing food there in the 90s that restaurants here are doing now. And that was my norm. That was my everyday. And then, I got to cook for some very famous people. They liked it a whole bunch. And so then I got to travel a lot, getting to work with different people. I got to work with like Eva Longoria, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. But they were calling me by name and having me do different things for them, which for me, it built my ego. And then, but I always knew because of my father and my upbringing that, you're only as good as what you tell people you are. So like as good as your word. But the way I was kind of raised in the kitchen is you're only as good as your last meal. So no matter how good I was doing these things, I was always in constant doubt of myself for the next. And I don't know if, I guess that fear kind of got me to where I am now, but I think it definitely kept me polished over the years. And, when I travel and I look at my career, I've got a little diner here in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's doing wonderful. I have the best partner in the world. But what took me to get here through all the travels, I'm kind of getting lost here when I'm thinking about all the things I've done, but like nobody's really asked me that question. So I'm kind of like sitting back right now and I'm looking at like everything coming, kind of shooting at me. And it's been a wonderful career, but I think, there's certain things in my life that have gotten me to where I am now. And one of them was, getting to work for Philippe Forcioli and then him calling me chef the day I left. And then fast forward to working in Chicago, I got to work briefly with Charlie Trotter. That was really cool. And then coming to Little Rock, Arkansas, and, I'm a huge Bill Clinton fan. Some people judge me for it, but I like Bill. And then getting to do the Slate 60. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the Slate 60, I believe, was 2007, 2008. And like Bloomberg was there, Ted Kennedy, Ted Turner, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Laura Bush was there. Just a lot of heavy hitters were in the room. And somehow, with all my background, I was able to be put in front of them. They liked me. And Bill came in the room and he was like, Donnie, I don't know who hired you to do this, but I'd like you to do it next year. And so then we built that relationship and I did it again. Well, then, very quickly, people knew who I was. And then Eva Longoria hired me to do some of her, the Eva's Heroes thing. And she introduced me as her celebrity chef. And after that, I've just got to do some really cool stuff. It's been a great career. So.
It's amazing. Well, and you're only 44, by the way. So, 20-ish years into it. And I would imagine in some regards, you feel like you've accomplished quite a few things. You've got, Cathead Diner where we're sitting here today. But I would imagine in the brain, there's a long way to go. There's a lot you still want to do.
There is a lot I want to do. Right now, I'm very content with my career. I've got a great restaurant. I have a great staff. And, one thing to think about too, and, in anybody's career, no matter what it is, we think of time capsules on people that we've worked with. And I worked in some very fine dining restaurants. I worked with some very celebrated chefs. And this isn't just me kissing ass right now, but I can honestly say the full staff, top to bottom, that I have right now, and, it's mid-February 2020, is the best staff I've ever worked with in any restaurant, in any part of the industry I've been in. And so right now it's really easy for me, but I look at it, I'm a classically trained chef. I'm making barbecues, scrambling eggs in the morning and frying up some chicken, and we are busy.
Well, and I can attest, every single time I've come and eaten into a restaurant, I've never once had a protein that I thought was anything less than amazing. The sides that you prepare are, if I could just take gallons of them home, I wouldn't eat anything else. And this is not me kissing ass. This is me. I mean, I love food as much as anybody. And I can't tell you how many people I've brought here that from out of town and everywhere else, and we come in the rustic simplicity of this place. Everybody loves it. They fall in love with the concept because you can't get that good of food in a somewhat cafeteria style, walk through the line and have it served up.
That was the hard part, and I'm glad you said that because, looking at my career, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. I don't think I could have done this as a young chef. I think my ego is in the way. I mean, you look at any industry, and our number one goal in any industry, we forget about how important it is to make money. Mm-hmm. We first focus on how can I be the best at my craft? How can I win the most awards? How can I have the most accolades? How can I let other people see me as a powerful person because I'm looking up to so many? And so this for me right now, I feel like I've achieved a lot of those things. I struggled so hard to get the white chef jacket on and to win all the awards. And I sound kind of shitty when I say it, but I've done that now. And so now I guess I'm here to relax and not to work less, but give the people what they want. As a chef, we have so much to prove. We're an artist and we have an ego. And it's kind of weird how my priorities have changed. First it was like my ego that had to be padded with my style of food. And thank God everybody liked what I told them to eat. And now times have changed. It's 2020. And the only reason that we're doing great things here, and I feel that we're doing very successful lunch services and breakfasts, is we're listening to the customers and they're telling us what they want. And so rather than being a typical chef where you look at them like, you're stupid, this is what you should be eating, not this, I'm listening to them and taking it in, and I'm trying it. And if it doesn't work, I try it again until they give me a thumbs up. I mean, it's all about if you own a business, because with chefing, it's different things. You can be a chef and have somebody else take all the risk and they pay you, and they're paying for your name, your reputation, and your food. Food costs runs a little high, numbers, they just kind of figure it out. But when you have skin in the game and you're owning it and you have a partner that's showing you the numbers and teaching you how the business works, you have to take everything into factor. And so, saying only 44, I like the way you put that because I feel like I do have a lot more to offer, but at this stage in my career, like I've done it, I've won it, I'm listening at this point. And, even though it's not fine dining or not at a white tablecloth restaurant, I think I'm putting out the best food in my career right now because I have the best staff.
Yeah. Well, I wish I knew you 15, 20 years ago to taste some of these things that helped kind of create who you are. But at the same time, I mean, I don't come here near enough, and that's on me. But at the same time, every time I come, it's a true treat. And,
awesome, man.
And I love it. And I get the opportunity to travel quite a bit. And so I'm eating out all the time. And I always try and find great places in the cities I'm in. And to be able to come back home to Little Rock and have such a great restaurant right here is such an amazing thing. Because, I mean, we've talked a little bit about just some of the other great restaurants in town, but you either go to them and you spend a fortune, or you can't go back often enough because you find the two things on the menu that are good, but you're constantly, you've got some staples, the creamy cheese grits, by the way.
Oh yeah, those grits.
Unbelievable.
But even if you even talk about that, like then the chef in me is like, this is from Ralston Family Farms. They're local, and they are local.
Exactly.
Dude, Heifer's right down the road. You can hit a baseball. You can and hit the top of the roof over there from my patio. I mean, we can see the whole city, the downtown scape, but Heifer's shipping me farmers, giving me contacts constantly. And even though my job is to cook the food, our job really is just not F it up. And we're getting the best products in here. And as we're sitting right here, do that pull right there, you can see like the bourbon barrels. And I did fermentation on some hot sauce. They're aging in Rocktown bourbon barrels.
Wow.
But the peppers are from Heifer.
Okay, we're going to have to try that.
Yeah, we will when it's up. We got like Heifer, Rocktown bourbon, Rocktown, and Cat Heads all together. But
wow.
And and you talk about the restaurant scenes, you get to think about being a fine dining chef too, and like you said, watching Little Rock grow and change. We've got a new mayor that's kicking butt. We've got a lot of really cool change in the city. But you watch the news and the climate that we have right here, and at the end of the day, I'm still an artist. We still need something to kind of fill our hearts. And we can watch the news every night and talk about the divide that we have in any city, the just the hate that's going on. If you look up in this room at 11:30, you can see every walk of life, every social demographic, every financial demographic, and even racial, having a meal together, laughing and enjoying it. And you'd never know any of that shit was going on outside the doors of this restaurant. And when I was doing fine dining, I only cooked for the 1%. I heard a lot of bullshit back then, but I mean, I looked at the city through a different scope.
Sure.
And so anyhow,
I love that perspective though. No, because in fact, very soon we should be having the mayor on the podcast as well. And
cool.
So it'll be a lot of fun to have that conversation as well. But his platform is let's unify the city. What better way to do that than around a table?
Around a table. Food's always involved, man. Shoot, I mean, there's a famous painting, The Last Meal.
That's right.
You know, it's even in the Bible. We all eat. Come on, man.
That's right.
And food can change a lot of things, and it can make people happy. And if you have that platform for people to do it,
yeah, I love that.
What a better place.
So much I want to cover. Let's start with the artist in you. Much like my industry, right? I'm a storyteller, a visual storyteller at that. I love to sit and talk to people and understand where they come from, what they do. But then I have a duty to put out what the consumer wants, what the viewer or the listener wants. Because I want to put out what I want. But at the same time, if the listener doesn't want it, then what are we doing? Right. And there's a lot of similarity in what you do. Like you were just saying, if you're listening right now, you're hearing what the market says, and the market always wins. They're always going to tell you what works and what doesn't, whether it's your job to listen. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that idea of the creativity in you, the artist in you, but also how that couples with, I've got a business to run, and I've got to put out food that people are going to like on a consistent basis, on a scalable basis, and kind of tell a story within that food.
That's a good question, and you know, it gives me a lot to think about. And you know, when you listen to that, okay, the chef aspect. One thing I've always thought about food, and anybody that's ever worked with me, I have this persona that when you meet me, before you speak with me, you think I'm going to be like a dick, or I don't know, just cut you down quickly. I'm your typical chef, but I listen a lot more than people think, and I watch. And when it comes to the food, we just want people to feel like warm inside. One thing that's important to me is family, and we've got a lot of my favorite people in my whole world that aren't on this earth anymore. And we want people to have the same experiences, thinking about food their grandmother cooked, their mom cooked, taken back to a summer where the whole family was there, smells, all of it. And so, okay, that's our duty to give people that experience. And then me as the leader and the chef, I have to somehow make my team, dude, this is what we're doing, guys. Get them on the same boat. We're going to create this, and we're going to make it this way. But I found doing business and being the chef side of it and telling that story through food and making it kind of a family environment where you get all those demographics. What is hard for chefs to typically do is take other people's ideas and opinions and styles and working with them. And this is exactly what I've done with this. And so as an artist, I listen to every single one of my cooks, every single one of my chefs, regardless of how insignificant I think their culinary training, their lifestyle, the way they don't make their bed or they do make their bed, all of those things. I listen to what they have to say. I let them bring me somewhat a story about food. And then we figure out ways to cook it to where they're able to cook it like I can, but then it's also like, man, this shit tastes just like my grandma used to make back on Sundays. And so, hopefully I'm touching base with what you just asked, but as a chef, I'm a different chef now. I've got a family restaurant, and we want people to feel like family when they're in here. But that being said, you and I both know that when we work all the time and bust our ass hustling, the people, there's two groups you spend time with: your actual family that you sleep, in the same house with every night, and then your work family. And man, I feel blessed because both families, not only do they all get along, but I have great families on both sides of the fence. And so it's been easier for me to listen and to take time. And it's probably funny, when they listen to this, they'll probably get it. But sometimes when I talk to them, I sit and listen extra long on telling me about the food you used to make. I got a new chef back there now, Mike. He's making his mom's chicken and dumplings. and everybody's loving him, man. And not only that, they're cleaning their plates because it was his mom's, but they're from the South. And so when he's talking about it, I'm listening, and he doesn't realize that I'm taking every mental note that I can because I'm learning from them. And I kind of feel like we're all learning from each other. And that's the food I'm putting out right now, man. So I'm very vulnerable. You know, they could totally F me with some of the stuff they're putting out or telling me, but, you know, I'm a sponge right now, and I'm listening and I'm putting it out. So hopefully I stay on topic with that, but that was...
That's great. I love that. But I think perspective is key, and understanding multiple perspectives, and then sort of as the leader, as the artist, as the chef and the business owner, taking all those perspectives and saying, okay, here's the direction we're going to go.
Absolutely. And, you know, like leading any business with what you do, if your team doesn't feel like they're part of the movement and part of the change and part of the progression, you know, you're a bad leader. And two, you're not going to have those people that will go to any battle with you. And so I kind of feel like I'm good at it. Maybe, you know, they might say different, but if, you know, you come in here on any given day of the restaurant, we're super slam packed, lines out the door. I'm sweeping, I'm bussing tables, I'm cooking with the team, I'm answering phones. I try to pick up any little bit where it can help somebody else succeed. But, you know, this whole side of the restaurant, it's a lot more than... It's a different atmosphere, because as a chef, I could just be like, you know, F you, this is how we're doing it, move forward.
I don't think I've ever been here and not seen you out on the floor. I don't know that I've ever seen you behind the line when I'm here. and I applaud that, because I think, you know, again, it's about so much more than just the ego side. I'm bigger than everybody else. I'm putting out this great food and standing back and watching you eat it.
And there was a guy that was in here the other day, because I still get some of my, and I tell people, I used to be fancy back in the day. But there was a guy, 3-top in here. And what's so funny is maybe he'll hear this and realize who it was, because he didn't tip very well. But he looked at me, he goes, wow, you're like one of the most celebrated chefs in the city, and you're sweeping the floor. And my comment to him was, wouldn't you? And he looked at me, I go, man, I'm like hustling right now. I'm one of the owners, and like, this needs to get done. What am I, a point and tell somebody to do it? And he just looked at me. And then, you know, one of my servers goes, chef, I don't know who that was you were talking to. Boy, they leave horrible tips around, you know? And it was just like, I knew that guy from when I was fancy, and he'd come in my restaurant. And it's just like, you know, and I guess, you know, that might've been pointless, but.
Well, no, the leadership aspect of that is absolutely on point.
Yeah.
And the idea that, you know, you've got to lead by example to an extent. You've got to show everybody that works for you and with you, your work family, I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, but I wonder why he didn't tip very much. Is it because I was sweeping the effing floors, or, you know, he didn't think I was back there? But I don't know. It was just an awkward exchange of conversation on a Sunday, and we were packed. And it was like, obviously, you've never owned a business.
So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about just kind of the business side as a whole. Your partner in the restaurant. You're not just an employee or a celebrated, you know, chef that works for the restaurant.
Right.
You are equally as responsible as anybody else for the outcome of the profitability, the, you know, making sure that you can pay the people that work for you, and creating an establishment that the audience wants to come to, that the consumers want to come to. So, putting your business hat on for a minute, has business been easy for you? Has that always been a struggle? How did you kind of become sort of an entrepreneur along with a chef?
You know, that's a very good question, because, you know, my first strike at the iron, I became I was very blessed out of the gates. I had great teachers to get there, but my first restaurant, you know, I named it Ferneau. It was my last name. A funny story, I got in some trouble. I was a good athlete growing up, got a little bit of trouble with the cops, nothing big, but my grandma Ferneau thought I ruined the whole family name. This is up in Iowa. And then my business partner asked me what we should call the restaurant. I said, Ferneau. It sounds like a good name. It rolls off the tongue. Secretly, I was doing it so she'd be proud of me again. She died 2 weeks before we opened. Oh, my goodness. But hey, she was my grandmother, so she loved me. But with that restaurant, you know, we took risk. I kind of looked at a void, you know, like other entrepreneurs and business people do. Whenever you create something, you try to fill a void that's not there. And not only do you try to do it, but you do it strong. And so This was Little Rock, Arkansas, 2000, circa 2003, 2004. And my partner and I, we talked about it, and there was no place to have a nice meal, have a couple drinks, listen to some music, and have something progressive that wasn't like dinner rolls on the table and so outdated. And we got really lucky with it. And even when we weren't profitable, we were still making money. And so what I mean by that is when we were spending money poorly, our costs were high, our food costs, labor costs, all those things we were trying to work out, there was still sales coming in through the door that we could float the business. But my business partner is very savvy and very smart man. He was able to teach me the wins and the losses of business. And, when him and I split ways the first time in 2011, because we sold the business successfully, I took the football and ran with it. And I did a lot of great, successful things. But then I was stupid and opened up a business with passion because I was passionate about something. And I opened up a healthy restaurant in Arkansas, which nothing to say bad about that, but I was very passionate about it. And my passion blinded me by the realities of business, numbers, rent, formulas, how that works. And so in a real, school of hard knocks way, I learned my lesson. So I had a big win with the first business, a strong loss with the second. And I think, I know that him and I circled back together because, for one, we kind of had both passion, but more business sense going into this. And this one right now, this one's really winning because we've taken all the wins, the losses, and put together. But, you can read 1,000 books on business and still not know what the hell you're doing once you get out in the open ocean, you're swimming on your own. But you really have to work it and do it to really learn, because every application to what is different in every region of the country, every region of business. It's all different. It's not a one size fits all. And so, I wish I could say I was uber successful my entire life and I've lost nothing to get here, but that's the exact opposite.
Well, and it's really probably the losses that teach you way more than the wins.
Oh my God, man. The losses will teach you how to be very frugal with your money, And what I can say, though, is no matter how poor business has gotten, I've always paid my employees on time.
That's great. Hey, trust me, that is a huge thing to do. And like you referenced, business is a lot of times about how do we float to the next month? How do we figure this out? How do we get from point A to point C without totally skipping over point B? But each time you have to do that, you learn a little something so that the next time it's a little easier, the next time it's a little easier. And you hope that not only do you become a successful business owner and have the satisfaction that comes with that, but that trickles down to your staff and that they learn it's okay to try things and maybe fail, but that they learn from that.
Absolutely. And that is a great statement, because I had a business partner here before, or just in general, I'll just say in general. And the one thing that person took as a huge disrespectful thing that I said to this person was, what did you learn from that? And that person looked at me like, how dare you say that? And I was like, oh my God, wait. Every time I get my ass kicked, I take a step back and say, what did you learn from that? Because you can just lick your wounds and get back up. But if you didn't learn what just ran you over and how to avoid it, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And just because the way I taught myself is like, okay, Donnie, you dipshit, what did you learn from this? What can you do different? And, but yeah, the wins and losses with business, I mean, if you can't learn from it, but going back to my age, as a younger chef, when I was celebrating all the magazines nationally, did all that, you have your ego up front. Now my ego's in my back pocket, and I'm able to listen to those. And those losses, I'm not making excuses for it. It's the reality, The black and white, when you look at your financials, that's not opinion, that's factual. And when your customers are telling you what they want, that's not opinion either, that's factual. And if you can somehow get those two together, you should have a win. I think that it goes across the board with any business, really.
I love that. All right, talking about teamwork. We hit teamwork a little bit earlier, but your team is very important to you, the people here. How do you go about building that team?
Well, I guess if you look at it in a nutshell, overhire and cut the fat once it's running. But we really gave everybody a chance. And again, even though I sound pleasant, I'm hard to work for. My expectations of myself and of my staff, they're non-realistic. And getting there, I mean, we have fired a lot of people. We gave them chances. They kind of fired themselves, I guess you could say. But the ones that stuck with me, I guess the resilient ones, the hardcore ones that want the same thing that I want. I mean, you got to meet Leslie and Autumn today. And what's crazy is when I have talks with them, they want this business to be successful as if they were owners. And it's to have that kind of feeling, man, it's a huge honor. It gets me very emotional to think about. But then you have other employees that come in that just want a paycheck. And you got to realize, like, in the culinary industry, we're a band of pirates, a bunch of misfits. And, you don't get rich doing it. And a lot of people, have extracurricular lifestyles. And, I think we've really weeded through that. We've built a family here to where a lot of them hang out outside of here without me being part of it. But we somehow make them all feel like family, and they're my family. And so building a good team and reliability, man, I mean, I guess it speaks with the owner and the person in charge. I mean, if you treat them like shit, they're going to treat you like shit. Yep.
And it's a couple of great things out of that. I think one of the big things that stands out is you've got to earn the respect. But you said two interesting phrases that I think one of my favorite authors talks about a lot. One is resiliency and finding people that are willing to kind of butt up against things and go through the difficult things. And the other is extreme ownership. Jocko Willink, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's former Navy SEAL. He was a Navy SEAL training officer and one of the guys that you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley and piss off. But he talks about extreme ownership a lot and finding the people who are willing to take ownership over something and not give it up. Whether they own the business or not, they're going to own their part of the business. They're going to own the customer relationship. They're going to own the food preparation. They're going to, whatever it is. And you as a leader, as an owner, have to give them that responsibility and then walk away. Say, this is yours. You have extreme ownership over this. I'm going to walk away. And if it ever gets screwed up, it's on you because I gave you that ownership. But the key for you as a leader is giving up that ownership.
That's very difficult to do too.
Yeah.
And it's, this restaurant, we've kind of done that. We give a lot of credit. I never give credit where it's not due, but I let them take the credit. And, as a food writer, maybe I'm not fun to write about because I give credit to everybody around me, and I'm not going to hog it. But when it comes to F-ups or like the food sucks, it's my fault. If it's a win, we all did it. If it sucks, it's my fault. So, because that's what the customer thinks anyways, but if you're man enough or woman enough, owner enough to own that type of criticism, you're going to have a team that will work their asses off for you. But man, let me tell you, if you think you're going to own a business, it's going to be easy and, oh yeah, we're going to knock this out. Well, it might be after 10 or so years, but man, when you're trying to form a business and build, you have to treat your staff with the greatest respect, and you can't talk down to them. I mean, there's certain things I want to say now, but politically it's incorrect. But like some of the demographics I've had working for me here, I'm learning about barriers and what you can and can't say, and what strikes a chord with some people won't with others. And so you put that all in one basket and you build a language for everybody that's motivational. You're not stepping on anybody's toes, but at the end of the day, you just want your job done. You want everybody to do their job right. And here, man, I'll tell you, because my girls, my guys, they don't hold back. If I say the wrong thing and 6 months into this business, I don't know what the hell was going on, but now we're a year and a half in and it's finally figured itself out. But I learned as much from them as they have from me by them teaching me what I can and can't say. Because, dude, you got to realize my background is like French brigade style screaming and, I've never been that way because I feel like people that yell in the kitchen or at work, they're just angry people and they're probably mad because they suck. But I try not to get angry with my staff, but like that was my background. Yeah. One chef pointing, screaming, telling you what to do, and you just shut your mouth and do your job. So then think about that and think about the demographic of today's society. Think about the kids coming out of college right now. Can we talk to them that way? Not at all. They know what HR is, you know, and they know how to use it real well.
That's right. Well, I think we've all seen the movies and probably experienced in some regards in restaurants ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
The stereotype that goes with a lot of the kitchen, you know.
Oh shit, man. And you know, even in the city, they'll have people there are people still to this day that think I'm very hard to work with. And the way I tell, you know, my staff is like, okay, there's two sides of me. There's a very sweet, giving man that will do anything for you and work very hard. And there's another one that will cut you down, make you be quiet, work very hard, and you won't be good enough. I don't decide that. You do. And people that want to talk bad about me and say I'm hard to work for, they probably lied. They probably didn't do what they said they were going to do or didn't follow through.
Sure.
If you look me in the eye, tell me you're going to do it, that's all I ask for. And when you F up, if you say you learned something, win again. If you make a mistake and own it, I will hug you. You will not be like disciplined. If you make a mistake, lie about it, tag it on somebody else, you're going to hate me. I will ride you until you quit, you know, or we fire you. But it's, anyways.
I love that.
I get weird about that.
So good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the chef network, the other chefs around you in this market, or if you go places and run into chefs. There's from my perspective, almost two schools of thought. You've got the friendly side of chefs all working together for common good of taking care of their population, putting out good food. But then you have a very competitive side of chefs. I want to be the best. I want to have the best restaurant. I want to have the best food in the best restaurant. The other guy across town isn't up to par. You know, talk about that dynamic and how does that fit into the whole chef and culinary industry of both the friendliness and the competitiveness? And is that a personality thing? Is that an industry thing?
It's kind of crazy, you know, and I have to skate across this very politically correct because, again, going back to it, some people don't think I'm the nicest or whatever, but I see it. Little Rock is different, man. Like, you build a nice core group of people, but even my business partner, like, apparently it's in all fields of business. Like, you get a really good group of people that are straight to your face and nice to you, but there's a toxic kind of underbelly of every industry in the city that no matter how successful you are, somebody wants to take you down.
Sure.
But I think right now with the chefs that are especially getting celebrated, one thing I want to talk about, I think is really cool in the chef industry, you know, getting more females out there in that younger, you know, generation that's a little bit wilder and more willing to take risks, but getting rid of the stereotypical chef kind of iconic position right there. You know, the core group that we have right now in this industry in Little Rock, if you look at who the stars are right now, I think they've gotten there for a reason, you know, and they've celebrated, you know, like look at some of the restaurants you're talking about right now. You've got Scott Rains at Table 28. He's a very unconventional chef, but he's a freaking rock star, you know. You know, the Capitol Bar and Grill just switched gears and they're bringing a new chef in, which I think is super cool. But like even look at the food truck culture. Like Amanda Ivy's out there killing it right now, and she's kind of worked under a lot of chefs, and now she's her own entity, and she's one of those female chefs I'm talking about, which I think she's kind of pulling other female chefs up out of, you know, into the limelight just with her leadership, because, you know, she's doing things that are unconventional, but they're amazing, you know, and she's doing the food truck dream. And even though she probably wants more, I think she's smart as can be because she can shut the doors and drive away at any point. But you know, as far as all of us working as a team, you know, we're getting there. We're slowly getting there. I think who's really being this rock stars in this industry and getting us all to work together are the farmers. A lot of us chefs are really liking to use some of the local farmers, and the local farmers are non-biased. They just want to use the best chefs. And so if certain chefs have a beef with each other, they're starting to kind of lower their, you know, dropping their guard a little bit and working together. And, you know, this right now, and I'll bring it up, there's a conversation I had with my friend Rob Ross. And, you know, he knows a few of my secrets because I have a couple chefs out there that for some reason don't like me, but I was asking, like, what I do? And he's like, man, I don't know, but why don't we do this? And he said something really cool out here in this parking lot. I'm doing something with March of Dimes right now. March of Dimes came out of retirement 5 years ago, was their last event, and they brought me on as their lead chef. And he said something to me that stuck with me. He goes, man, all you guys just need to get together and do a big dinner where there's no politics, nobody's butts hurt, you just cook together and love it. And so March of Dimes has me doing an event on September 24th here in Little Rock. And the group of chefs I'm building now was direct motivation from what Rob Ross said. I want no politics. I want all of us to get together, cook together, and have fun about it because, in the medical field, marketing field, I'm sure in your industry, there's always politics in there. And when you're in public and you see these people, you all shake hands and take photos together. But behind closed doors, everybody's trying to talk shit about each other, and it becomes toxic. And being a celebrity chef, traveling and doing some cool stuff, and apparently they use that term loosely because some of the stuff I've been involved with, it blows my mind. But one thing I found, you saw Auburn was here today, and I was meeting with them. When I was there working with all these chefs, they were all James Beard Award winners or nominees. Every one of them had each other's backs. When the event was over, they all drank whiskey together and we had fun, but there wasn't that underground just bitchiness. And so I think every industry has it, and I have to be very careful with what I say because there's a lot of it here, and I think a lot of it stems from jealousy. But right now, my mission in 2020 with this new March of Dimes thing, it's great, a great cause, but I want to get a bunch of chefs together and cook and have fun and try to rebuild the structure of what it means to be a chef in the city because I think at times it becomes toxic because you look at food writers, every single one of us, think about your job. Think about every single time you go to work and you did your work for the day, some asshole can write a review about you and what they think. And what's so funny is most of those people leaving negative reviews probably have jobs where they're probably assholes to people on the daily, but nobody's giving a shit or reviewing what they do. And I'm not saying their jobs don't matter, but with you look at the social age, kids right now, they're 12 years old staring at phones all day. We're chefs. And when I became a chef, you got written about by like journalists and real food writers. And now you can be like, I'm going to be a food writer. I eat food every day, so I'm going to start a blog. And then you have this capability to critique chefs at their craft. But then, I'd be lying to say if it didn't get into our head. And that's kind of what causes the toxic side. So, short story long, I think, us moving positive, I think we're all kind of over the food blog thing, but I think the constant being judged by the community, it makes us toxic because, dude, if we forget somebody's ice water or beer or we slightly overcook their chicken, it's like we went at their house and slapped their baby in the face. They're going to write horrible things about us. So, think about that daily. So anybody listening here and thinking why chefs have egos, dudes, you guys can eat in our restaurants, get in your car because you were fighting with your wife and the whole experience is horrible. And you're going to leave, a horrible review on something that somebody's poured all their passion into. And if you get enough bad reviews in a row, it's going to economically affect how you live, So,
so more of the story, just leave chefs alone, let them do their thing.
Yeah, let us do our job, man, and chill. But I think a lot of that builds a toxic level because when I was a young chef coming up, everybody had fun. Now all this Facebook, Instagram, and Yelp, we're each other's throats, and I guess we don't even know it.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate because I want to shift gears back the other way now, and something you brought up, March of Dimes. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Heifer International, and we've, I think I've interviewed you over there for a project, and you give back in a lot of ways. I've seen you at multiple events. You're always out in the community, a part of fundraisers and nonprofits and helping out where you can to support these efforts. And I've seen a lot of chefs do that. There's
Absolutely.
A very generous heart, it seems like, that comes with a lot of chefs. Why do you do things like that? Why is that important? Why is that something you give back to the community for?
One thing you have to think about, regardless of all of us chefs, you're even at arms and they're mad at each other and all that's not working. The one common thing that we have is feeding people and making our community better. And so for me, making my community better is a huge thing because, think about when we're kids, man, eating dinner with mom and dad, for those of us that were fortunate enough to have, a standard, typical family life for a brief moment. But no matter what I had going on in the world, I was safe at mom's table. And so whenever you can feed people and give them a great meal, even politically, people drop their guards and they become friends at that point. And all of us chefs, no matter what side of the city we're in, we want to make our community better. We want to look at how we can, one, inspire people to do good. One thing you don't want to do is piss off your neighborhood you're in, but how can you become more rooted and create change to make everything, evolve into a positive? And like this restaurant alone right here, when I moved here to Little Rock in 2001, I'm not saying it's backwards, but I couldn't believe the lack of recycling that wasn't going on, And so now there's a group of chefs trying to get that together. And, like there's a place called Potluck. And now what we're doing is, you come to Catheads, we're cafeteria style. It's not a buffet because you don't get to touch the food. We do. But we donate all of our food weekly to Potluck. They come and pick it up. I mean, dude, we were sitting here. I was meeting with the people from Auburn. You were setting up, and my guy from Potluck came in, go in the kitchen, and my chef Kaplan set him up. And so it's those things that we're not doing, but we know in our hearts, we're feeding somebody down the street that might not even know where it came from, but it might be giving them a meal to help somebody else out or to get off their ass and, get their life together, But fundraising is a big way. There's two sides of that coin, and if you look at it the smart way as a business owner, you can spend all your money with TV and print ads and all that stuff, and that's thousands of dollars. Or you can be directly in front of the clients that you want to be in front of, spending that same amount of money, letting them know who you are, but giving back and making a change for your community. And I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. But it's hard for me to say no, especially if the cause is really good. So I do way too much shit, man.
But I love it. And I love seeing you out there. You always have a smile on your face. I feel like the ego for everybody is gone in those environments. There's no such thing as, the food writers. What food writer is going to have something negative to say if you're out, helping Heifer raise money for the work that they do internationally? And,
absolutely.
Okay, so you've been a part of several concepts. You mentioned when you moved to Little Rock that where you had been, you guys were doing things that Little Rock's just now kind of doing or, recently kind of picked up. So the innovation in the culinary industry, and as a chef, as a young chef, you're always free to try new things and you kind of want to prove yourself and see what's on the horizon that you can bring in. But how do you continue to innovate and change? And as the world changes, how do you change with it, but be true to yourself? That whole mentality.
And that one's a tough one because you can do all these different things and try to be the greatest chef that you can. Like, I'm gonna cook the beef this way. I'm gonna make this crazy sauce, blah, blah. But until you figure out your audience, and one thing with Little Rock, and I thank you for this, you're very predictable with your times. If it's raining outside, you're probably not going to come. There's a silent dinner bell that rings every night at 7 o'clock in Little Rock, and everybody eats at that time. They also eat from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. And after 1 o'clock, you got a dead restaurant. And so how do you capitalize on those things? Also trying new things. If you get too obscure on a Tuesday, and then you're upset because nobody tried it, it's an effing Tuesday, man. You have to get excited about it. And when you do these innovations, you have to try it again, and polish it. And then if you're giving it to your customer, and this I feel like this goes across the board with any business. If you're not excited about it, they're not going to be excited about it. And you can, as long as you can sell that shit straight and you're really selling it to them with your passion behind it, they're going to try it with an open mind. But, perfect example, you look at this jumping through hoops and trying to be innovative. It wasn't innovative, but it was innovative to Little Rock. Was ossobuco. You've heard of ossobuco, braised lamb shank, all of it. And so I had a food writer, and it was a female food writer, and she was known, and I know the name, but I'm not going to say it. Those of you who've read the Dem Gazette before, food bloggers, and when you could remember when you became a chef, you became a chef at the mercy of a legitimate food writer with the newspaper or magazine and print. This one was known to be very rough. And she came in and I did the ossobuco. I did a broth where I tore Thai basil over it. Now, Thai basil's like similar basil, not as sweet. It has more of like an anisey or like a licorice kind of finish. But I did a broth with some roasted potatoes. A lot of times it's with mashed potatoes or grits. And I started with a whole lot of grilled bread and some grilled vegetables. But the best part of ossobuco to me is the bone marrow. And so when you get a good ossobuco, you have that shank in the middle, you have the bone. And again, it's a very classic dish, but because of the region I'm in, it was innovative because nobody else was either doing it or they were doing it for such a small market, a lot of people didn't know. And so thank goodness I've always touched the tables, going back to Philippe. I talk to each one of my tables that I can if I have time, because if there's going to be a bad review, I can intercept it, but I can also listen to what they liked and what they didn't like about the experience. And then from that conversation, I can do whatever the hell I want with it. I can forget about it. I can change it or get mad, whatever. But she didn't like all the fat, the bone marrow that was in the bone. It was big. And I stopped and I showed her, and it wasn't her lack of journalism or anything there. It was just she was cooking her region, or she was writing about the food of her region, I guess you should say. So when Little Rock wasn't doing ossobuco, this is like 2002, she didn't know what to do with the bone marrow. So I stopped her and I showed how to take the demi-tasse spoon and spread the marrow on top of the grilled bread, and to see the light in her eyes and her face change, like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had. I didn't know. I went from a complete shit review to like an amazing review because I stopped to show her those things. And so circling back on being innovative, sometimes you just need to educate your audience on what the hell they're having. But, innovation is a great thing and it's a bad thing. You just have to make sure what you're innovative with, you're really listening to who you're cooking for or you're doing business with to give them what they want, but you're predicting what they want, but they don't know they want it yet. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so being innovative, it's almost like you have to look into the future. And, looking at our restaurant here, we opened up with a big donut shop in here. Donuts. And they were great, but nobody bought them. It was like looking at animals in a zoo. They point at it, that's cool, but they went and got the fried chicken, the brisket. We only have donuts on the weekends now. We rolled with the punches. We have cinnamon rolls. People love cinnamon rolls. They've asked for cinnamon rolls. Now we have them. But we try to be innovative with the donuts, and then you have Hertz donuts that came in. The city loves them and all that. But for some reason, they didn't want cathead donuts. And so I hope I answered your question.
No, I love that. I love every element of that because innovation, you're exactly right. It has to come with an understanding, an education. You look at some of the greats, the iPhone, right? So many people early on were scared of the iPhone because they didn't know what to do with it. And then all of a sudden there becomes more of a common understanding. But people still, I see them pick up the iPhone and they're afraid of the newest update, right? It's because, well, what changed? What do I not know now that I thought I knew? And I love how that falls into food because you can be innovative as a chef. You have an understanding and an ability to put something out to people, but they may not know what to do with it. So they're scared of it, or they think it's worse than the previous version or whatever the case may be. And I think that goes across any industry, that with innovation has to come education and understanding. And so one of the things I've been preaching a lot lately is the idea of I want to be understanding, not understood. Like, I don't want you to understand my point of view. I want to understand yours. If I understand your point of view, then I can educate you on things you might not understand about what I'm trying to tell you. But if I just push my idea across, then you don't have any idea where I'm coming from. So I need to understand you first and then be able to kind of educate you based on that perspective.
It gives you a better understanding on how to word to them as well.
Yeah.
And you can teach them in that proper way. And this is, and thank God for saying I'm only 44, because I feel like the wisdom as a chef, like I'm much older, but I still have the gusto to cook. It took me so many years to do that, man, because I don't know how I did it. I'd get lucky and I'm like, we're going to fucking do this. We're going to, we're going to do salmon roe with, I don't know, scallops, two totally off flavors. People enjoyed it, and even, doing a scallop crudo with, I don't know why I'm saying scallops all the time. Maybe I want some. I'm secretly hungry for them. But like carpaccio, like all the classics, but mixing things together that normally haven't, that normally don't go together. But I would just push it at them. And at the table, I could act all hyped about it. You know how people are. They're influenced very easily sometimes. And if I was excited about it, they were excited about it. It could have tasted like shit, but they still were like, bravo, you're the chef here, you must be great. But understanding and being innovative now, you're right. You have to listen to your client, you have to listen to your group that you're trying to work with, and then give them something that they want, but they didn't know that they wanted it. That way they're excited about it, but you're really listening to what they're giving you the answers.
Yeah.
just make the shit happen.
I love that. And that's a great part of the creativity that comes with your profession, with my profession. We get to sit back and listen and then come up with something that you're exactly right. They didn't know they wanted, but they see it and they're like, that's amazing.
And I'll tell you what, my business partner is one of the greatest control groups because he has done very well for himself. So he's at upper crust, the 1%, but he was brought up like low country, the dude likes some of the most southern stuff in the world. And so he really gives me great inspiration on things to cook. And it ranges. It goes from people that, every financial walk of life. I mean, this guy is a titan, and his palate, he can eat great steaks all over, but he likes good chicken and dumplings and fried chicken and chicken livers and, smoked pork and ribs and all that stuff too. And so he really has inspired me to do some of this stuff here too. So
that's awesome. So speaking of, who are some of your current titans? Who are some of the people you're paying attention to that are out there? If we travel the country eating great food or,
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So like, who do I have like a chef crush on?
There you go. Exactly.
It's kind of cool because I'm friends with some of them, but first I can think of, just what he's done up there. Matt Cooper, at Preacher's Son, up in Fayetteville area, Rogers. It all runs together for me. So
That's
people
right.
that live
We
up
just call
there,
it Northwest Arkansas,
NWA. But he's doing things that are because you forget about the healthy side of me. Like I like all the food allergy friendly cuisines, but he's doing stuff that is so just progressive, and he's feeding gluten-free and just foods that are so right for your body to people that don't give a shit, and they're loving him for it. And so I kind of feel like he's speaking to the mass with that. Like he's hit that niche, and he's very motivational. I've got, David Bancroft and Leo Morelli in Auburn. I was just, talking to those Auburn guys. David Bancroft has taken some pretty big risks there in Auburn and doing Southern cuisine and rolling with the punches. But Leo Morelli, he's the chef at Auburn. And dude, he's doing stuff with like slow, old school Southern food, but at an elevated level that is inspiring to me. And it's kind of teaching me. So I'm kind of paying attention to what those guys are doing right there. But then I've also got to work with a lot of really, really cool chefs. I've got to do dinner before with Brian Voltaggio before. And that was really cool. And like, I know Kevin Nashin got to eat his food, got to cook with him and ride bikes with him in California, but he has Sydney Street Cafe in St. Louis. And so, anytime I want to see like, who would I be as a chef right now if I was stuck in not stuck, but if I was still in fine dining, he's doing things to me that really make sense, and he's rolling with those punches. But when I really go outside the box and look at chefs I've never got to work with, but I've got to meet, and everybody talks about, Gordon Ramsay. I actually got to meet him and talk to him a couple months ago in November. That dude was the nicest guy ever. And like, I was so fangirling over him, but like when he spoke to me, he did like that soft talk and like, it sounds like a crush, but like he touched my hand, kind of stuff. And like, but there was a connection there, and he actually was interested in my business and how I'm doing it. And, he was like, man, that's really interesting. I've learned about your restaurant. I've read about it. It's amazing how you're doing that. And to get that from him, it was like validation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think he might be probably one of the most famous chefs out there, or most iconic
Definitely.
right now. But talking about, and I'm going to keep saying a couple names here, but I got the honor because of, and I'll tell you, I guess one of my idols, I guess they're local, they should be bigger, but Chef Jamie McAfee out of Pine Bluff, he teaches the college too. When I look at that, when I was talking about the Slate 60 earlier, cooking with President Clinton, every time I've had something huge on my plate I knew I couldn't handle, I called Jamie McAfee, and he walked me through it. He walked me off the ledge and reminded me, pardon my language, but who the fuck I was and why I'm here and how we're going to do this. And because of him, being a chef up north, you learn about Cajun food, you learn about Paul Prudhomme, and his Cajun ways. Being a chef that loves poke and all those things, you think of Sam Choi. Jamie McAfee made it so I could cook with both those chefs and built a relationship with them. And what's cool about Sam Choi, and I don't know, you guys all know those poke restaurants and everything else.
Sure.
Sam Choi's at the Godfather Poke, or Poke. And we are chefs, and we have funny jokes. Sam Choi will still text me and be like, hey man, I'm with so-and-so. Send me some funny shit because we got to laugh right now. It's getting serious. And I can always make you laugh at the drop of a hat. But, I've been in some pretty cool situations where I look up to those chefs. So I think I kind of carry it with me, and like those moments I've had with them and how graceful they were with me, I like to transfer onto and bringing it back. I like to bring it back to my younger chefs. But when I'm really thinking about the chefs I've idolized, I've actually got to work with them before and meet them, so.
That's awesome.
Now I'm blessed, bro.
Yeah,
I feel
it's super
blessed.
cool. Well, and I was telling you earlier, I feel so fortunate because I tell stories for a living. That's a pretty fun job most of the time, but I get to be around people that I'm like, how did I end up in the room with you, And when you sit back and think about it, you're exactly right. It's just like, you just work your tail off, and all of a sudden these opportunities present themselves, and you're around people that you're like, I would love to even just listen to hear you talk from a stage, much less sit and have a one-on-one conversation with you.
Oh, dude, and I'll tell you, you say that, and this is a funny story, and it's crazy that I get to say this. And Paul Prudhomme, he passed away at the same time that Chef Philippe Forcioli did. But Paul Prudhomme told me I actually got to give him his first heirloom tomato. And so we all know what heirloom tomatoes are now. But I was on a conference call, and when we did it, Arkansas was having a really rainy season. And so just think about these names involved. It was for Frank Broyles, for the Frank Broyles Alzheimer's fundraiser, because of his wife and how great, getting to speak with Frank Broyles, man. Let me tell you, I didn't know shit about Arkansas football. I got to meet him, and because of Frank Broyles, I became a fan of Arkansas football, especially because of the way he loved his wife. And he brought all these chefs together for this one cause. And so Jamie put my name with his. And I'm like, dude, I love you, bro. And thank you for that. I won't make you regret this. I'll make you proud. And so we had a conference call with all the chefs. And it was a rainy season. So in rainy seasons in Arkansas, the end of tomato season, tomatoes will grow and they'll burst. I was doing a heirloom tomato salad with raw sweet corn and did a Maytag blue cheese dressing. Super simple, just a nice, a buttermilk blue cheese dressing with raw sweet corn, heirloom tomatoes. Just don't F it up and it'll look great, right? Well, then the menu's done. It's all set in stone. And I'm on a conference call. And I said, I can't do my salad. And Paul Prudhomme's like, Mr. Ferneau, Mr. Donnie. I can't even remember what he called me. I was just in awe that Paul Prudhomme was on the phone. What's the difference between a regular tomato and an heirloom tomato? And I'm like, well, I tried to explain it to him. And he just wasn't listening. It was he was over it. Just do the damn menu, kid. The menu's done. We're all doing this. And so I'm at the Pine Bluff Country Club, and I'm making this salad, getting it ready. Paul Prudhomme comes in a scooter. He goes, hey, Donnie, let me try one of them there tomatoes that you got. And I did, man. And let me tell you something. Taking it back to when I was a kid in school, up north doing the whole thing, reading about Cajun food as Paul Prudhomme. Fast forward 15 years, I'm handing Paul Prudhomme a slice of heirloom tomato that he's never tried in his life. And watching his eyes light up was like watching a child try a strawberry for the first time. He didn't, I guess, in Cajun cooking, you think about Creole tomatoes and all that stuff. But we're in Arkansas. I guess we can bring it back full circle. We're in such connect with the farmers here that we take for granted the ingredients that we have. And so ever since that day, it was like, holy shit. And I think that was 2007, 2008. It's somewhere in there. It's all a blur.
Sure.
I can go back and fact check and see what it was. That. But I can say I gave Paul Prudhomme his first heirloom tomato. So I guess that's my claim to fame.
There you go. We found it.
We found it. There it is. Holy shit.
There it is.
There it is.
Well, so Chef Ferneau, what's next? What's the where are you going from here? What do you have in mind? Is this you mentioned you're content, you're having fun doing what you're doing.
What's next for me? I'm ever changing, want to do something else, but right now, if you've looked at the neighborhood, and Nate, since you've been knowing me and here, and even when we did the heifer event last year, the neighborhood's grown. It's grown. It's getting there. My number one thing right now is to make sure this business is running the way it needs to run. Let this restaurant, let's put a few more years under my belt here, and let's make this thing very profitable, and let's make sure that the staff I have under my belt right now is getting paid, and everything's running great. then I'll think about it. But right now, man, what's crazy is I look at my life. I'm happily married. I go home most of the time at night. If I'm working nights, it's either for a charity or it's for a large event that we know we're getting paid for. But like right now, my life is good. And I don't know. I mean, that is a great question, because chefs are like ADD. There's squirrel over here, squirrel over there. We're chasing the next thing. But like right now, life is good. And I look at all that I've been through, and man, I really couldn't tell you if it doesn't involve my team that I have right now or my investor or getting this business successful, I probably don't have my eyes on it.
That's great. I mean, focus.
Yeah.
If you have clear focus, that's all you can ask for.
That's it.
I think that's huge. So I want to do just a few kind of rapid fire questions. I love to do this part. First thing that pops in your mind, and we can skip anything you want to. I don't know if you're a reader or a movie watcher, TVs. What's the latest book, TV show you're watching? What stands out in that regard?
Books. Dude, I used to read all the time until I just opened this restaurant. Right now, dude, latest movie that I thought was awesome is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just saw it recently, and I'm not going to say the ending because it would kind of ruin it for everybody. But dude, what a great movie. I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan, and I like his style.
That's great. That's great. Daily routines. What do you have to do every day? Are you a coffee drinker? Do you work out? Do you check the numbers on a bit? What's kind of some of your daily routines?
So, every day I do come in here. First thing I do is I make myself a shot of espresso. And I guess lately my routine, because I used to be an avid, cyclist and working out, is bitching about how I need to get back in the gym every day after I shove pie in my face. As long as you make it a consistent daily thing. That's all. It is a consistent daily routine. But I'll tell you, man, real life, consistent daily routine, and don't be jealous, is Wheel of Fortune every day at 6:30. And if I can't watch it, I tape that shit.
As a chef that can be home at 6:30,
yes,
that's an accomplishment.
Well, we're usually here 12 hours before that, but
yeah, I love that. I'm a big Wheel of Fortune fan. Best piece of advice you've ever received or given?
Be kind. And really, just be kind. That's it. Don't be a dick and be kind.
I love that.
That's really.
So if you were ever to write a book, what would the title be?
Well, first of all, if I ever wrote a book, the first page and last page would be an apology. Sandwich in between so I could say whatever I wanted. I've got some good stories, man. I guess it would be a cookbook, but it would be how to get out of any situation, I guess, with food.
I love that.
Yeah, how to get out of any situation with food.
And that's totally true. People will taste something and they'll forgive anybody, anything, anytime. I love that. Favorite artist, musician?
Oh man, favorite. I got a few of them, but I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan.
Okay.
Love the Beastie Boys. And I'm trying to get into some indie rock right now. I've been listening to Camp. I like Tyler Childers a little bit. But, dude, it always goes back to Beastie Boys, man. Huge Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique.
Love it. That's great.
There you go.
All right, chef. What's your favorite dish?
Did I cook or did I eat?
Oh, both.
Ooh.
Not going to let you off the hook that easy.
Okay. I could go M&M style and say mom's spaghetti, but no, honestly, my favorite dish to eat is my mom's chicken and dumplings. That's hands down the best thing ever. And if I were to make it in Arkansas, if anybody hears this in Arkansas, they're like, oh my God, we want that. No, you don't, because there's vegetables in it and it's different than the Southern.
Is it more of a like chicken pot pie filling?
No, it is. And it's got vegetables in it. And then she takes these drop dumplings and puts them in and they get fluffy and they turn into these steamed dumplings. It's like nothing you've ever had, like an airy cloud of chicken love. And then she takes the lid off. So she steams it she bakes it for 20 minutes with the lid on and they rise, then takes the lid off and they brown on the top and get crispy.
If you ever just happen to make any of those, just give me a call.
I'll give you a call, dude. I'll bring some of my mom's dumplings for you. But my favorite thing to cook, though, honestly, is anything fish. Anything fish.
Do you have a favorite fish?
People say that I cook scallops the best. I guess if I'd cook for Gordon Ramsay, it'd be scallops and risotto. But Scallops, I was, everything I learned how to cook very well, I was taught to cook out of shame, I guess you should say, because Chef Philippe that trained me, I remember making him scallops, especially risotto. I've never seen anybody throw the entire saute pan, everything that they use to taste it with, eat from, and everything into the garbage. And so I was able to hone my craft and risotto and scallops. That's my favorite thing to cook.
I love that. Well, Chef Ferneau, thank you so much for taking the time. You're a true titan of the culinary world. Appreciate everything that you do for the city of Little Rock and especially for my stomach. So thank you,
man. It was all my pleasure. Cheers.
Love it. That's great, man. That's awesome.
It didn't suck.
If you liked this episode of Titans of Industry, head to contenttitan.co/podcast for more episodes or subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. Thanks for listening.